Hi guys, I want us to look at the recent changes with the AWS IAM, the Identity and Access Management dashboard. Before now, when you want to create a new IAM user, you can actually specify a programmatic access or a console login access while creating this user. But AWS is making some security changes, and of course, AWS is always trying to improve on when it comes to security. So let's look at some of the latest changes why creating an IAM user. Of course, we know how this works. It is advisable you give access to the users the least privileged access that they need to perform the tasks that they want. So I'll go ahead and create a new user from the AWS console where you have add user. I'll call this user Vincent. I don't want to enable console access for this user. I only want to enable a programmatic access for this user. And before now, you can actually do that while creating an IAM user. But there's been new changes. So, firstly, you need to create this user, and then you can give this user the privileges that you want to give them. I am going to give this user a full administrative access policy. Next, I will create this user. So after creating this user, I can give this user more access on things I want them to perform. So if I want to give this user a programmatic access, I can go to the security credentials, and yeah, you can add an MFA. You can enable MFA for this user, making sure that this user can access the AWS console, the resources without providing another means of authentication, a secondary means of authentication. You can do that from here. And if I want to give this user an access key ID, I want to give them programmatic access that can actually help them to use the AWS console using their credential or from PowerShell or other AWS SDKs or even programmatically from their code. You go ahead and click on create access key. So this gives you like different options. The first one is the CLI. If you want this user to be able to communicate to the AWS console using the AWS CLI. The second option is local code. If you plan to use this access key to enable application code in a local environment to access your AWS account, so you want to programmatically, access your AWS account or resources through a programming language. Then the third option is if you have an application running on AWS. So let's say, for instance, you deployed an application on AWS, maybe EC2 or a Lambda function, and you need access to communicate. You need an IAM user access key to communicate uh, through the services on AWS or the application on AWS to communicate with your resources on AWS. That is the third option. Sorry, and the third option is if you have a third party service. For example, if you are running some services on Azure, and for some reasons you want to create a communication between those services from the third party to AWS resources, you can go ahead and use the third option, and then you have the fifth option, which is application running outside AWS. So I mean, this you can this option and the third option is similar. So if you plan to use access key to enable application running on an on-premises host or to use a local AWS client or a third-party AWS plugin, you can go with that option. And then finally, you can use your own case, use your any other case that is not listed. So in this case, I just want to enable this user a command line interface to allow them to programmatically access the AWS console through the CLI. So I will choose this option, and of course I will check that I understand the above combination. I want to proceed to create an access key. I can describe a tag value, not necessary at this point, and I have created this, and you can go ahead and download the CSV file that have the access key and the secret key, or you can copy it once from here and click on show to copy it from here as well. So once you're done, you can click on done. And this is like the latest changes in the AWS IAM user credentials. I have seen a lot of questions people have asked, how do I do this? How do I enable credential? How do I enable programmatic access for an IAM user? And I hope this video helps you understand some of these changes and how you can use it better. Thank you so much for your time. Bye bye.